Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we're going to take a look at yet another Takara Tomy figure. This one is not a Jurassic World figure. This is just a standard Takara Tomy figure, but it's one I've wanted for quite a little while now, especially once I purchased that 3-pack that included the Spinosaurus, Brachiosaurus, and Triceratops, because the Triceratops was really nice as far as that Ceratopsian goes. And then there was also a Nasutoceratops, a Jurassic World style one from a little while back, and I thought that Nasutoceratops was beautiful as well. So as far as the Takara Tomy line goes for a track record with Ceratopsians, I feel like they're pretty much on a roll. So the Styracosaurus was one I definitely wanted to get a hold of. Luckily for me, I have awesome friends like John Sakulo, who likes to help me out from time to time, get me some awesome figures, send them over here for us to take a look at and review here on the channel. So a huge thank you to him for sending this over. As always, I can count on him to help provide us with some awesome figures to take a look at here on the channel. So again, thank you so much to my good friend John Sakulo for sending this over and now giving us a chance to look at yet another Takara Tomy Ceratopsian here on the channel. You can see a very nice image of the Styracosaurus here on the front, as well as some images of it up here on the top, kind of showing some of the articulation. A little bit of information here on the side that I cannot read. Another nice image here of the Styracosaurus on the back, but it's actually not this figure. It's a very cool image of a Styracosaurus, though. I definitely quite like that. And then an image of the figure again here on the side. So let's go ahead and get it out of the packaging and take a look at it. So here is our Takara Tomy Styracosaurus, nice and small like I expected it to be. And honestly, it is very impressive. Once again, just like every Ceratopsian so far here at first glance, once you get a nice shot here from the side, I definitely cannot say anything other than it looks really beautiful. Again, Takara Tomy is very impressive at times, and I just don't think people give them near enough credit for having such beautiful figures. It feels like maybe some of their earlier figures were just not that great. Like if you look back to the older T-Rex and Velociraptor and stuff, they weren't really all that awesome. I mean, they were decent, but they just weren't that great. But when you see figures like this, like you just cannot help but be honestly really impressed by the effort that Takara Tomy puts forth. Another really cool looking figure, so let's go ahead and just get a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt, you can see some really nice skin texture, beautiful scales and stuff all over the head sculpt of our Styracosaurus. It looks really beautiful as far as the skin texture goes, and also the entire skull shape of the Styracosaurus is really nicely shown within the sculpt of the figure. You can see a very nice painted eye here with a yellowish coloration, just a little bit of sloppiness there with a black pupil though, but I don't think the sloppiness is anything too bad. This side looks better than the previous side did. Definitely nicer on this side. You can see a nicely painted beak to the Styracosaurus with some fairly nice looking detail contained within, as well as the tongue right there you can see is present. So that's nicely done. You can see that that horn right there is painted with like a kind of an off-white. It's actually quite bright. Wouldn't have been my first choice with like those lighter colors, but again, you can't deny that it really gives the entire head a very striking look with the gray and the way that those lighter colors on the horns play off of each other. That really gives the figure a very striking appearance, so I guess it actually does work fairly well on the figure. I also like this kind of reddish coloration that we have, like a little stripe of it right here, and then 2 spots right here up on the frill with a nice black spot right there on each, and I think that is another little bit of flashiness to the figure overall, but primarily the head is just this grayish coloration. You can see that there is some nice sculpt and detail contained within the spikes that run up around the frill though. Very nicely done in that aspect as well. If we look here at the back of the frill, that also includes some quite beautiful skin texture. Once we come back into the neck, you can see lots of really nice creasing going on there in the neck of our Styracosaurus, as well as a little bit of like a ridge line that runs down the spinal column from the neck. You can see it poking up here and there, but it's not super visible. It's not very elaborated. As you move back here into the body, you can see the shoulder blade a little bit right there. The front leg is lifting up off the ground. Looks very nicely done. You have some light coloration similar to what we see on the horns for the nails, although that one nail isn't really painted all that well, but it's not terrible. You can also see a little bit of variation with some darker grays and stuff showing up here and there on the figure. Some really nice skin texture here in the stomach region as well. Not too much going on as far as like skin folding and wrinkling, but it still looks quite nice. You do have a little bit right there in the joint of the hip as well as the hip bone there, and you can also make out the spinal column running along the back of the animal, which looks pretty nice. Very nice muscle tone in the thigh and calf region. Another nice looking foot sculpt here on the back with the fairly nicely painted nails with that lighter coloration. The nails do stick out almost like a sore thumb with that lighter coloration, which is in a way a good thing, I guess. And then we move out the length of the tail, that nice short Styracosaurus tail, some more beautiful creasing and some more really nice skin texture down the back of the tail. The underside also sports a little bit of a different look to the scaling, a little bit larger scaling here in the stomach region. Some beautiful skin wrinkling and everything going on right there in the chest as well. And you have a brown that runs along the upper side of the Styracosaurus, again giving it some more color variation. This side you don't see too much difference than what we see on the opposing side. It's almost in a neutral position. The rear legs look like they're in exactly the same spot, but you can see that the front left leg is lifting up off the ground over there, except for the right front leg is just planted. So that's really the only difference that you're going to see on this side in comparison to the previous side, but that just means that this side is also really beautifully sculpted. So as far as this Styracosaurus goes, definitely another very impressive Ceratopsian from the Takara Tomy line. As far as a size goes, this is definitely a smaller figure. You are looking at for a length about 4 inches or 10 centimeters, and then for a height, the top of the horns about 2¼ inches or about 5½ centimeters. It probably doesn't really look like that too much from your vantage point, but I can definitely tell you that's what it is. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon next to our Takara Tomy Styracosaurus, and this really shows you that the figure is very small, very close to, honestly, like a mini size range, but I think that for the amount of sculpt and detail, and actually the decent paintwork included, I feel like this makes the figure a little more impressive, showing you just how small it is next to these. It really shows you how incredible the sculpt is to have so much detail packed and slammed into such a small sculpt. So hopefully this shows you and gives you a good idea of how impressive the figure is overall. And then as far as articulation, the only area you have as far as articulation goes is the head in the neck region. And you can see it is on a swivel, so you can completely turn the head upside down if you really want to. And you can also make the head go up and down and left and right, all over the place. And it's really nice articulation for a Ceratopsian, and I guess you really probably don't need too much more when it comes to a Takara Tomy figure. So this Takara Tomy Styracosaurus is a very impressive figure. Overall, I really am continuously impressed by the Ceratopsians from the Takara Tomy line. This is 3 for 3 that I was actually quite a big fan of, although I will say that as far as like the paintwork goes, I feel like this one might be one of the least enjoyable, because even though the paintwork is nice, there's just not really that much to it. But at the same time, what they do have included is pretty nice, and it's almost like your standard Takara Tomy paint job where you don't have too much, and what is included is almost like the bare minimum, but it's still enough to make it look fairly realistic. Maybe after looking at the Tyrannosaurus Rex recently, which actually had some pretty nice paint to it, this one's just a little bit of a letdown in comparison to that one, but still has a decent paint application. The sculpt is really nicely done as far as the minute detailing and everything goes. I mean, you don't see too much going on as far as like skin folding and skin wrinkling and everything, showing like movement throughout the body, but things like the skin texture and just like detailing in the horns and the beak and everything, it's all really nicely there, and Takara Tomy has done a very good job of sculpting the figure out as a whole. And the entire figure, I think, overall, as far as the sculpt goes, is really nice and really appealing as well. Very nice kind of walking position for the Styracosaurus. It actually looks like maybe it was just standing completely still and is just starting to take a step, because the 2 rear legs are in a completely neutral position. So it's like it's lifting its front left leg up to maybe start walking and maybe just finished eating or something, or it's heading to the watering hole to get a drink. Regardless, a pretty cool pose for the figure, really beautiful sculpt, fairly decent looking paint job with some fun articulation in the head to allow some posability and displayability options. So another really, really cool Takara Tomy figure as far as their Ceratopsians go. And one thing that is a plus about the Ceratopsians is you don't really have those annoying, very visible ball joints that some people are not a huge fan of, like you do in the theropods with their tails. You don't really see that so much here on the Ceratopsian, so that is another plus for the figure. So if you would like to pick this up, I will do my best to include a link in the description to where you can do just that. So make sure you head to the description after this review is over and go pick yourself up some really cool Takara Tomy figures, and make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.